Yo, Nemi gang, welcome back to another Tekken 8 video, and today we're talking about the recent review of Virtua Fighter 6 and the hype surrounding it in relation to Tekken 8. This seems to have affected the Tekken 8 community in a sense, and I'll get into that later. Okay, so Virtua Fighter 6 was announced at the Game Awards back in December, and recently there's been a 30-second clip that has surfaced showing some in-game footage or in-game gameplay of VF6, and it looks insane. Like, it looks so good. It sparked so much conversation, so much hype, controversy. Like, bro, like, this shit looks sick. Like, coming from me, and I have never played Virtua Fighter in general. I played it back in the day, right, when I was so young, but like I don't remember anything about it. Like, I don't remember that much, right? I played MK3, Street Fighter, like those are the games I played, but I didn't touch Virtua Fighter that much when I was a kid. But judging from what the gameplay looks like just from this clip alone, bro, like this looks amazing. It looks good. It might not be like in-game footage, it looks kind of choreographed. You know how they do those like Steve versus Hwoarang choreographed matches where Steve is like swaying everything back sways and ducking every high Hwoarang is throwing. I think it's something similar to that, but like you can tell that the gameplay just looks good. So now, how does this relate to anything Tekken 8? Firstly, we did talk about this in one of my last videos. We talked about the identity of Tekken, right? Tekken 8, or rather Tekken losing its identity. Now that comes back to this game as well, because everyone is saying Virtua Fighter 6 is what Tekken should have been, or what Tekken should have evolved into. Virtua Fighter 6 looks raw, like raw, pure martial art. And to be honest, this was taken from Tekken 1 to Tekken 5 in some degree, like in some sense. Like Virtua Fighter 6, like the difference between this one and Tekken is Virtua Fighter 6 seems to be like pure martial art focused, right? Like hand-to-hand, raw, pure martial arts. Tekken has that boundary between martial arts and fantasy, right? Fantasy creatures and stuff like that. I don't think that's the case with the Virtua Fighter. Again, I didn't play the early Virtua Fighters, but that's what it looks like judging from this particular gameplay. Okay, now let's talk a little bit more about Tekken's identity. Like, my last video sparked so much controversy. There were so many comments. Like, the interaction on that video was insane, and I'll stick to what I said in that video. Tekken is losing its identity, or has lost its identity. If you look at Tekken 1 to Tekken 5, right, most of these characters were purely hand-to-hand combat, right? If you look at like characters like Yoshi, as I said last in my video, Yoshi was kind of an exception because he's always been like the oddball of the series. So we kind of just accepted the fact that, okay, Yoshi is the only character in the game with a weapon, like he's holding a sword against characters throwing hands, right? Against characters like Hwoarang or Eddie doing capoeira. It was very weird. Even as a kid, I used to say, dude, why is Yoshimitsu, like, how come Yoshi is the only character with a sword in this game? But he was a very weird character. Like, he fit beautifully in the game, and we just kind of accepted. Now, one of the most common arguments I get is that we're talking about Tekken being a pure martial arts game when the characters, when there are robots in the game, there are animals in the game, devils in the game, but like, what was the most common ground between all these fantasy characters, imagination characters, devils and animals? Like, what was the common ground of all these characters? They were all throwing hands, or they all throw hands. No weapons, no bullshit, no projectiles. Characters like Devil Jin, for example, or Devil Kazuya, yes, they did have projectiles, but none of those projectiles were like meta, or something you had to spam in a game to win, or something to use in a game. We just scrubs back in the day, right? So stuff like Devil Jin's basic laser beam, you just hold down to duck it. His fly into laser beam was not meta. So even though you had these characters, right, the Jacks, the robots, and the kangaroos, they were all throwing hands, or all doing martial arts. Roger was a kangaroo that did wrestling, right? Yes, Jack was not doing a pure martial arts, like, you know, like OG martial arts, but it was still hand-to-hand combat. That's where I'm getting at with this identity crisis, right? And then enter Tekken 6. Which, by the way, is my favorite Tekken. Tekken 6 is my greatest Tekken of all time, but this is where it began to really lose its identity, and it started mostly with Alisa, right? Alisa bringing out the chainsaws. That's the biggest issue of what I mean by Tekken 8 losing its identity, because now you have Alisa using a bunch of chainsaws. I'm like, okay, how does this make sense, right? In a game focused mainly on hand-to-hand combat, we have Alisa spamming a hella chainsaws. Unrelated to the identity of Tekken, this is where like Rage began as well. So people don't really like how Rage has evolved in Tekken 8 right now, but it all began from Tekken 6. And honestly, I was a fan of Rage back in Tekken 6 because it was good to like make a comeback, but I think now it's a bit more overtuned. Okay, going back to the martial arts stuff. Characters like Lars and Bob did make the game. Yes, people are pissed that they did like freestyle martial art. It wasn't really like legit martial art, but like they were still throwing hands, you know. So not the identity, it didn't really lose its identity totally. Tekken 6 was like at the edge or the beginning basically of the evolution of Tekken. And then came Tekken 7, and this is where shit went south. We got Noctis, right? We got Negan, we got Rage Arts, and we got Rage Drives, and from there on, it just became all convoluted. Enter Tekken 8 as well. We got Victor, we've got Clive now, right? So you guys get where I'm going with this. The hand-to-hand combat is not a thing anymore in Tekken. We have Victor with weapons, Clive with weapons, Noctis came with weapons, against characters Akuma with fireballs, Geese with fireballs, you know. So this is where Tekken is right now, and adding all the other stuff I said about Rage, you know, they've brought a hit stuff now. Like the game just feels very convoluted, like it's evolved too much. There's so much stuff, you know, in the game that it's not really what it used to be. So in a sense, yes, Tekken has lost its identity. Now going back to Virtua Fighter 6, a lot of people are excited because the game just looks raw, like just raw combat. Of course, we haven't seen the mechanics, we haven't seen their own version of Rage or their own version of V-Trigger, any mechanics related to the game. We have not seen any of that. It might have stuff like this, honestly, but that's what people are worried about as well. They're like, please, 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 let this gameplay just be raw. Don't add any Rage stuff, any hit stuff, any of that random bullshit. We just want pure, focused hand-to-hand combat. And people are hyped, like people are hyped. I'm kind of excited. I don't think I will play Virtua Fighter 6. I might try it, but I don't see myself playing more than one fighting game, honestly. There are so many games I'm playing right now, but we shall see. Now, will Tekken be cooked when Virtua Fighter 6 drops? Not at all. I don't think so. Tekken 8 has built a very huge audience, a very big casual audience as well, and like Tekken has always been Tekken. Soul Calibur, I think Soul Calibur 6, the most recent one, came out, it went, right? The 3D space. Like Tekken cooks the 3D space, and I don't think Virtua Fighter will take that crown away from Tekken, but like I think quite a number of people will move to VF6 if the game really is as it looks and the mechanics are deep and it's competitive, bro. I see people like Aslan Ash going to Virtua Fighter 6, right? If it will be as big as it looks. But I don't think it will take any momentum away from Tekken 8. This game is only in its first year, bro. Like it's not even 1 year old, almost 1 year old right now. But like, bro, Tekken 8 is here to stay, and there's so much more coming. Now, as for me, I've already talked about this. I don't hate Tekken 8, but I don't 100% like it either. There are some things I hate about the game, but there are some things I love about the game. The game is fun if you don't play it competitively. So outside of ranked, outside of tournaments, the game is fun, like just casuals, and it's a fun game. And I do love Tekken, it's my childhood. But like outside of that, I'm not really a huge fan of Tekken 8. If there's Tekken I would want to go back to, it's either Tekken Tag 2 or Tekken 6. So that's where everyone's mind is on Virtua Fighter 6. We just have to see more gameplay. We have to see how the game evolves. I think even Aries made a short video recently talking about Virtua Fighter 6, how he doesn't really like Tekken 8. You know, the game being simplified, having all these new random mass mechanics, being too oppressive. So Virtua Fighter 6 just looks like a huge breath of fresh air, and it hurts so bad because like, dude, when I first saw that combat, I was like, dude, man, I had like Tekken 3 flashbacks, Tekken 5 flashbacks. I'm like, bro, what has Tekken become? And it just hit me harder when I saw that gameplay. Of course, it has been a topic of discussion for so long, but like after seeing that gameplay, it's like, bro, what the fuck? Like, man, this shit looks good. It looks good. So yeah, I will try Virtua Fighter 6, but I don't see myself playing it for the long run unless it gets me hooked. But like, dude, there's so much stuff coming out. There's Bleach. There's a new Bleach fighting game coming out. I'm a huge Bleach fan, my favorite anime. We have Marvel Rivals going on right now. I'm addicted to that game. Path of Exile 2, as you guys know, I'm covering that now. Very, very fun. And Monster Hunter Wilds is dropping as well. So there's so many games to XKO in the future. So I don't think I will play Virtua Fighter 6, but we shall see. I will try it for sure. So how do you guys feel about the VF6 situation? Do you think it's really what Tekken should have been or should have evolved into? Or are people just being, are we overreacting, or is it just hype or nostalgia? Like, what do you guys think? The audience is very split on this subject. People do like the older Tekken games, mostly the older players like me, for example. The OGs, Rip, Aries, everyone has complained about Tekken 8. We prefer the older games, but the more recent players, especially the Tekken 7 players, seem to enjoy Tekken 8 a lot. So yeah, how do you guys feel about this VF6 situation? Let's talk about it in the comment section. So thank you so much for watching my video, boys. If you made this far, please don't forget to that like button and subscribe if you're new. I'm covering a bunch of Tekken content coming soon, so just stay tuned for that. So thank you so much, guys, and as usual, may the frame data be ever in your favor. GG.